My name is Isabelle McConville, and I am a bookseller and producer here at Barnes& Noble, and I am so excited to be here with the author of Our Share of Night, A Sunny Place for Shady People, and most recently, Somebody is Walking on Your Grave. Mariana Enriquez, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to Port Over.
Thank you very much for inviting me. A pleasure.
So first, can you please set up the story of your new book for us? Can you please tell us a little bit what it's of what it's about and introduce the book to our listeners?
All right. The book is many things, but mostly is a travelogue um, of my travels to cemeteries of the world. I think it's more than 20 years. I think the first one is or 20, in the middle 90s, and the last one in the late 2010s. It's you have cemeteries from Europe, cemeteries from South America, cemeteries from Australia, and it's not a tour of famous graves, though there are famous graves. It's not a tour of. It's like I like to call it like amateurish anthropology and a bit of a personal diary. I don't keep a diary. So when I travel, I tend to write down things, and I always visit cemeteries. So it's a collection of my travels to cemeteries and personal. I guess it's not autofiction. It's like the personal narrative. Yeah, first person, non-fiction. It's
That's
big.
that's what I really love so much about this book. It's not just one thing. It's not like neatly packaged as just a memoir or just a travelogue. I think it's a little bit of everything, and I think that that's so exciting. I love that books can be so many different things at once. Um, this book, like you said, it has a lot of you in it, as well as all of your travels, but also just experiences that you had that didn't necessarily always relate to just being in the cemetery. I'm thinking of the essay that you open with, When We Meet Enzo, and the story that you
Yeah.
tell us there. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about opening the book with that essay specifically, and if you knew when you were writing it that that's how you wanted your book to open.
At that point, when I decided to make a book with all the scattered writings that I had on cemeteries, I wanted it to be uh, a bit of a love story, a fascination.
Mm.
So that the first story is in Genova, and in the cemetery of Staglieno. That is very, very spectacular. And it's kind of sexy because you have a lot of sculptures from the 20s, the roaring 20s. So you have a lot of flapper girls dancing with death. And it's not your regular goth, it's a bit like roaring 20s, decadent. Um, it's different. It's more like Chrysler building, you know, that
Yeah.
idea of that kind of obviously Art Deco kind of thing. So I went there with a guy I met, and I was totally fascinated with him, and we had kind of a passionate event in the cemetery. So I really wanted to make a point of something romantic in the sense of not romance, but romantic in the sense of the romantic, the
Yeah.
romantic poetry and the romantic writers that I love, and that idea of sex and death and 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 beauty and statues, and this idea that is very much the sensibility of a teenage goth that I kind of was, and how fascinated I was with all that abandoned beauty, all that ruins in 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 many ways. But that's not the that's one of the fascinations I have with cemeteries. And I wanted all the aspects of my fascinations with cemeteries to be there. But the first one had to be that kind of teenage, you know, romantic, yes, little piece of morbid fascination, I guess, to be able later to talk about politics, to talk about
Yeah.
society, to talk about other things.
Yeah, no, and I thought it was the perfect way to, or the perfect essay to open with, because we also learned so much about you as a person just before we get into all of these different cemeteries all over the world. I think it's fun to see kind of one of the starting points for that fascination for you.
Hmm.
Um, when did you first start really working on this book and know that it would be, a project that you were going to pour yourself into?
The tipping, I mean, the event that I said, well, okay, all these cemeteries, I've been working on investigating and gathering information and taking pictures. I have lots of pictures of cemeteries. About, yes, late 90s, when I could travel more and travel more on my own because I had money and more independence and whatever. Um, but what happened was that uh, I really, I mean, I didn't really understand why I was doing this apart from the aesthetic and the, collecting stories from the historical stories, from the famous people, celebrities buried there, from the ghost stories, from, the popular, the pagan, all of it, the
Mhm.
art, all, and I couldn't really understand, especially in the context of the rest of my work, why I was doing this. And then a friend of mine, the story is there, the article is there. A
Mhm.
friend of mine found the remains of her mother. Her mother had disappeared in the dictatorship, and I mean, her body was found in a mass grave. Of, and she spent a year with the bones of her mom in the house and didn't know what to do with them until one day he said, well, you have to do what you have to do with the body, bury it. And that ceremony was so relieving. I mean, when you basically spend your childhood and we are born in a regime like the one that Argentina suffered in the 70s, where the politics, the necropolitics of the government is to make the bodies disappear. A grave is not something that is spooky to you. It's something that feels really final in the best possible way. It's something that you've been deprived of from power, from the state. So when
Yeah.
that actually happened, when this body appeared, this body that's not supposed to appear because that people disappear was a plan. So that this woman was recovered and we could bury it in a community and it was kind of very moving, a lot of people and super intense. Something happened to me and I said, oh, this is, it's not only because of this. Yes, you love the aesthetics, yes, you love the transgression, yeah, you love the history, yes, you love the beauty, yes, you love blah blah, you love the meaning, you love facing your fear with death, all that is there. But also is this very deep and traumatic thing that to me and to my generation, especially of Argentinians and to a degree of South Americans, a
Mhm.
grave with a name, you know, bodies that are not in mass graves, that bodies that are not disappeared, is a thing of is something to be celebrated. It's
Yeah.
in a way it's a victory. So that's when I said, okay, all this can be a book because there's a meaning.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I love what you said too about how that can, it's not typically seen, someone having a grave as a victory. But when we think about the context of, what led to that person being found in a mass grave, I mean, it's not
Yeah.
something you'd ever think about it being, a gift, but um, that was such a moving story. And I'm really glad that you included it in the book.
Yes. That was
Um,
the tipping point. Yeah, that was a one.
yeah,
Yes, now it has to be a book.
that makes sense. Also, this book starts with a great quote from Flannery O'Connor. I'm going to read it
Mm,
here because I just really love
yeah.
it. Um, the world was made for the dead. Think of all the dead there are, he said. And then, as if he had conceived the answer for insolence, he said, there's a million times more dead than living, and the dead are dead a million times longer than the living are alive. I think that's the best way to start this book. I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about that quote, and why you chose it for the start and just what it makes you feel.
I always think a lot about the quotes that I put in the books. I love to look for epigraphs, and I really love Flannery O'Connor, and
Mhm.
I wanted to be a quote from a writer that I really loved, and it seemed very reasonable to me. That's what happens with that when I read it. I said, yeah, but of course. I mean, um, and in that way, in the reasonable and kind of absurd way, it was very funny. So I wanted that to be also that tone of absurdity, and the fact that I'm collecting cemeteries in a way. That I'm kind of curating cemeteries, because in the process you also kind of say this one yes, this one no, and you know to realize in the process of doing it that really there's a cemetery every two steps everywhere, and to realize that very basic fact that there's more people dead in the world, actually in the earth under our feet, than there's people alive, and yet we're so scared of death, and we don't want to get wrinkles, and the thing is there, like there's nothing mysterious about it. And I don't know. I really wanted that to be, in a way, to be the tone of a
Yeah.
very matter of fact, and having a conversation and having fun and having a frank conversation about death. It's like, come on, why are you so horrified to look at this? That is like the most common, there's nothing weird about this. And yeah, so I think that was the idea by choosing that quote. It was saying, come on, there's nothing weird. We're all dead in a way already.
Yeah, it's kind of like the perfect way to just break the ice, and like you
Yes.
said, set the tone for the rest of the book because you are very funny. You have a great sense of humor, and I think that it comes through in the essays. And I, going back to what you said too about, like letting people know that death is a very normal thing. This is something that has happened forever. It's one of our only consistent things from the very beginning of time is that we know we will die. Um, can you tell me a little bit about how you got to this point? Because, like we said, there's so many people that are so afraid of death, but you're consistently confronting it,
Mm,
and trying to invite other people to see that there's nothing wrong with it, or not that there's nothing you should be afraid of, is really what I mean.
mm.
Can you let me know how you think you got to that point, while so many people are afraid of it?
Oh, I think I'm very afraid of death. But the
Mm,
thing is that I think it's that it shouldn't be that way. Not in the terrifying, horrific way that I kind of delve in my fiction, and I kind of feel about. Like there's something about death, about a dead body. I can't look at a dead body. I mean, I can in a picture, but not especially in a funeral or something like that. And I'm
mm,
very squeamish that way.
mm.
But there's something that I deeply resent in myself. I deeply feel that shouldn't be like that. And I consistently been trying to face death in fiction and in everyday life since forever, to the point of having a fascination that hasn't at all alleviate the fear, which is
Hmm.
kind of which tells you a lot about human nature. It's like I'm fascinating, I'm overexposed, I'm all the time, going to see uh dead bodies and mummies. I'm fascinated with the macabre, and I don't know. Last night I saw The Shrouds, the new movie by David Cronenberg. That is
Oh,
basically,
wow.
yeah, it's basically the idea is a new type of cemetery where you can pay to watch what's happening underneath. I mean, the composition process is totally sick.
Wow.
Totally sick. I was like very excited about the movie. I finished it like at 3 a.m. or something. I wanted to call people, all that. And then when I think about my death or a disease or something that can happen, it's terrifying. So I think what I'm trying to say is that I'm not doing this because I'm used to death, but I'm doing this because I'm terrified of death, and I don't know why. And I don't know why we are so terrified of death. And the answer has to be there. And there's something in the way that we've dealt with death in a similar way, but consistently we've been scared of it, been solemn about it, been absolutely petrified. All the idea of respect, of course you have to have respect of the dead and stuff, but sometimes when I'm doing the investigations, and sometimes, jokingly I step on a ground and say, oh, sorry. That is something that, yeah, like I like to have a relationship when I visit cemeteries with the people that are kind of living there, to say, oh, hello, it's not like they kind of, it's people. Don't know. And that idea, I think, it doesn't haven't really helped me, but in a way, but yes, in a way has taken the tragedy out of the situation, in saying, okay, we finish. We are a living organism of flesh and blood, and we finish.
Yeah.
And this thing finishes. And when it finishes, it's not like you can believe in, in ascension, other world, the soul, whatever, but still, that doesn't make you a god or another. In any case, it can make you a ghost, but you're still a presence that once was human, and of course can understand and relate to humans. In that sense, you shouldn't be afraid. You shouldn't be like over, frozen to the fact. You can still have like a normal interaction with the fact of death.
Mm.
I don't. I just, try to understand in fiction and in non-fiction why. And this is the investigation.
Yeah. And I think in a way it's like through this research and also through your fiction, and also putting this essay together, you're kind of like confronting and facing your fear. Um, and I think it's
Mm.
so interesting that you also say that it doesn't necessarily help you overcome that fear, which I don't know that we shouldn't be afraid of death.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, no, why? Well, you don't know what happens, so of course you shouldn't be. It's an investigation. All this most common thing is that we end as an organism, and then
Mm.
culturally we build all this, through that simple fact. And that is absolutely fascinating,
Yeah.
that we care about ourselves so much and about the others, to make the objective mystery of death of something that is such narrative. All literature is about trying to, to, I don't know if win death is the, but yes, to transcend it. I mean, to live
To overcome
this,
it.
overcome it. That's the
Yeah.
word. We all do things trying to live forever, or for a little longer.
Yeah, yeah, and you're making me realize so many things that are tied into that just in everyday life, like you were saying, even just the fear of getting wrinkles, of getting older. And if you really think about, why that is, I mean, sure, there's just the beauty standards and just vanity, but also it means that you're getting older. It means that you're closer to death, and that terrifies people.
Yeah. I don't I of course the the old, let's say, always have been. Now we are in this culture that sometimes seems like it's at the forever present, and we can't think, you know,
Yeah.
uh, of what happened before, or sometimes it feels to me that this time is also particularly reactive to the idea of death, because for many things our culture now seems like the culture that is kind of the one that is right, and everything that happened before we are here to correct.
Mm-hmm.
This is the right way to think about this is the right way. I mean, it's terribly normative in many ways. And and what it's particularly astonishing is from every side of the political prism. Like you can be very right wing and super saying this is how things are, and in the same way. And whatever
Yeah.
was done before is bad. It's not. We are correcting it now. This is the correct way. This kind of produces a forever present. But for the old woman, the woman that was close to it, has been, now it's very, very clearly a villain. You can even see it in pop culture in the movies, for example, in the recent movies. But the old
Mm-hmm.
woman, from the witch, from the crazy cat lady, from the woman that can't breathe anymore, that can't bear children anymore, that is dry, that is close to death, but not only to death as in the she's going to die, that is no longer green, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that is dying, in a way, has always been something to fear, something undesirable, something that we don't want. And we don't want it because it's no longer young, and therefore is no longer full of life, let's say. Um,
Yeah.
and that hasn't really changed. And now it's a time when it's particularly evident again. Um, there's many in pop culture, many cases in which the old man or the old woman is evil. I don't know, weapons. There one the movie there someone was telling me uh that the ant represents alcoholism. I said, yeah, right, but she's an old woman, it's not a cat
Yeah.
or a crow. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason why that image is unsufferable to
Mm-hmm.
us. She's an old woman, and she's dying also. But I mean, of course, the substance, of course, Maxine,
Barbarian.
no, but
Mhm.
barbarian, Pearl, endless.
Yeah.
The old
You're
woman,
completely right.
and that, and men too. I mean, there's some light off. For example, the old man in the house, the kids
Mm.
that enter the house. In the 80s, if you think, now we were talking about horror and stuff, it was the predator. It was the predator. It was the
Yeah.
serial killer, the predator. That was and now it's the old. So what scares you? That, pop culture, it kind of defines what scares you. And this is getting old and eventually dying.
Yeah.
So that's why also I think all those ideas of, trying to live through AI, putting your brain, as in Ubik, the Philip K. Dick novel, putting your brain in a computer, to
Mm.
live forever and stuff. It's like a profound rejection of the fact that flesh dies.
Mm-hmm.
This thing dies. Then you can maybe put it in a computer. Then maybe, okay, all right, but it's not going to be you anymore. Unless you get to be a vampire.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, so I think that's part of what's kind
Mm.
of going on now with that fear of death.
Yeah. And you're making me remember something too about again the first essay where I remember noticing as I was reading it the way that you were describing the statues um
Hmm.
and specifically that a lot of the statues that depicted women they were either matriarchs or they were young sensual girls. And there
Yeah.
really wasn't an in between. And that just makes me think about how, like you were saying, one of our greatest fears in society that at least pop culture wants us to believe is the aging woman or the aging man. And there's really no room for what happens to us in between, you know. And so I remember noticing that in that first essay that women aren't really given an option. It's like that dichotomy of the Madonna and the whore, where it's either you
Yeah.
are this or you are this, and as a society, we don't know what to do with women in between.
No, and it's a long time. So the in
Yeah.
between is the longest time. So it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of disturbing that you don't have really a space for this, you know, 30
Yeah.
years of your life.
Hmm.
At the same time, you know, there's a lot of freedom. You
Yeah.
can be creative. Nobody's really worried about you or looking at you. So instead, to me, instead of waiting for someone to look at me and at this point and, putting me in some kind of category, I can do
Hmm.
whatever I want. So I try to, be cool about this.
And I think that you making that active decision to just kind of be cool about it is what makes me want to be cool about it too. You know what I mean? So that's I think why we look toward books and we look toward creatives to kind of figure these problems out for us. Which
Don't
is a
trust
heavy
me that much.
weight.
Yeah,
That's a heavy weight on your shoulder.
yes, don't trust me that much anyway.
Also, at the start of the book, you say that you want your ashes scattered in a certain place. Can you
Yeah,
please tell our listeners what that place is and why you're so fond of it? And also, we do revisit that location later in the book.
yeah. In the Recoleta Cemetery in Buenos Aires.
Hmm.
I can't go there physically um, when I die because it's close to burials. One point, another point, much more important, is that you have to be from a family that has a mausoleum there, and they're the wealthiest families in Argentina. So I'm not from a wealthy family, like at all. So the only way I can be there is occupying a grave.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which I think it's also kind of a defiance, statement. Just of course, I can put my body there, but I can put my ashes. And there's a grave I particularly like. There was of the I don't know how it's translated exactly, but I was the president of the pet society of
Okay.
those. And it says something, there's nothing here, just ashes and bones and dust, nothing. And it's a pyramid because that cemetery is not a religious cemetery. Anyone can go there. There's a lot of masons and there's lots of people of other definitions. And it's not, which is, I found it amazing, is that it's not sacred ground. It's a ground that was not consecrated.
Mm.
Um, which is not every cemetery is a sacred ground, which is kind of very, very interesting. So
Yeah.
people from any denomination can be there, and people that ended their lives for their own will and stuff. They can go there. That in other cemeteries they can't. So that's pretty amazing.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's the little things that you know. So I wanted there as an act of, defiance and to be in that cemetery that to me is one of the most beautiful cemeteries in the world. And it's the cemetery that in my country that I could never get in because I don't have the credentials.
Okay. Yeah. And because I think that that also ties into you kind of facing your own fears, and rather than not thinking about when you die, you already know where you want your ashes to be scattered.
Yeah. Apparently, it's no longer there, the grave, you know? Someone told me the other day that this permanent, again, these little things that, uh, a grave can be, if you buy the land forever, it can be forever in the family as,
Mm,
as a house. But you can sell it, you can tear it down, you can do whatever you want. That's why in some cemeteries, graves are completely destroyed, even if they're works of art, because the state can't do anything. It has to be in the family. And apparently someone took the plaque that said this phrase, and
mhm.
apparently they are making some changes or something. They're moving my grave. So I don't know. I wish it's a lie. I'm going to go to Argentina now and check, because they can't. Come on.
You have to
Come
let
on.
us know.
Yes, of course.
I have another quote here from the book that I really love. I'm going to read it to you.
Yeah.
Um, every country is one big graveyard, and in almost all of them, sooner or later, and one way or another, everything goes bad, at different times with twists and turns. But we are here to die, and if we're lucky, to be buried by the living, to have a grave. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the top of the show. I wonder if you can talk to me a bit about writing that and really like what that means to you.
Yeah. Well, that it was is what we were talking about, the
Right.
grave kind of being a privilege, and I
Hmm.
think it is. I think in today's situation, just take the present day, like we were talking about the photograph of today, the amount of people in different um, conflicts now around the world. You can think about the wars, the genocide going on, the narco in Central America and Mexico and stuff. The incredible amount of people that are going to be buried without a name now,
Hmm.
today, tells you what a privilege of an end of a life is, to have people taking care of you, and that to be lucky enough to remember who
Yeah.
you are, and and put your name there. And I'm talking about now because I'm talking about now, but
Mm.
and thinking about the people that are never going to be recovered from a mass grave, never
Yeah.
going to be recovered from a pile of rubble, or never to be recovered. I'm in Europe now, never to be recovered from the very big mass grave that is the sea between Africa and Europe, where people are coming all the time and dying in the sea.
Hmm.
But already here in a continent where you can still go to the woods and see the massive, you know, um, monuments to the dead in the First World War, with all
Hmm.
those kids that were sent to that war, and you only have some item of their soldier gear, you know,
Yeah.
and the big, big, big cemeteries with all the white crosses, and they will never have a name. So that is also one of our realities. It's just not the horror of the violence and what goes on, but it's the horror that in that dehumanization takes away who you were, where you died, someone to bring a flower to you or insult you, something.
Yeah.
And so that is very to have a grave, to have a cemetery in many ways is a privilege. It's a thing of beauty. It's a thing of remembrance.
Yeah.
These are too, but in a different way. It's out of failure, of desperation, of not something. A cemetery is something that went right, not something that went wrong.
Right. That's such a great point. Um, I also noticed that. at many cemeteries, along with learning the local history, legends and lore of where you are. It seems like you're always also on the hunt for the supernatural in that area. We encounter stories of ghosts, vampires, witches, and voodoo. Can you talk to me about what interests you about the supernatural and, how you go about finding that in each cemetery?
I never experienced anything supernatural ever,
Mm,
anywhere. So I'm
okay.
always hunting for the supernatural in the places where most people have supernatural experiences because I want one. And cemeteries are like the place.
Hmm.
And and it never happened to me. But I went to some places on purpose to see if I could get an experience. One of the big ones that is in the book is the Black Mausoleum in Edinburgh in Great Friars.
Right.
That is actually that has a poltergeist that has actually take the government of Edinburgh of the city to take measures about getting near that grave and what
Wow.
tour guides do because apparently that poltergeist like touches you and hits you. You broke a finger of someone. I don't know. Like it's
Oh,
very
wow.
evil. George Mackenzie is the name of the dead that apparently, but they don't know because what happened, and this it goes on to the small alive and living. Apparently, a person that didn't have a house, a person that was homeless, was very cold. Obviously, this is Edinburgh. He went inside this mausoleum, slept there. The floor, couldn't resist his weight, fell, and underneath there was a lot of skeletons from the plague. So apparently
Mm,
something was disturbed there. So apparently the poltergeist is not George Mackenzie, but maybe it's George Mackenzie and all these other guys.
yeah.
And from then, many of the tourists that went in the very, kind of silly fun tourist macabre tour ended up with bruises and all kinds of things. I can tell that that place, it's weird. I don't know why it doesn't look especially creepy or anything like that, but it has like a terribly bad juju thing, but nothing happened to me. But I didn't like it. I really didn't like it, like something like repulsive about it. But that's the closest I've been to that. But the thing is that yes, I really also to have something supernatural happening in a cemetery is a bit of a sign of, a sign from the other side, like hello, I'm here. And no, it never really happened to me.
I would think that having an encounter would be validating in a way. I think
Yes,
it would even help, face your own fear about what could possibly be on the other side, because without having an encounter, I mean, it would just make me think, okay, so what is there? Is there anything there? And that
exactly.
might be more terrifying.
It is. I mean, there's a reason why we constructed the afterlife as a main concept in our life to the point that we live our life hoping for that and we behave in a certain way
Yeah.
thinking of the afterlife and the consequences of good and bad behavior and and getting there by doing certain things and comfort you know so in a way we are looking for some kind of reassurance. Okay, are you there? And uh, so far it's been silent.
We'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
At the end of the book, you leave us with a list of cemeteries that you'd like to visit before you die. Since writing it, have you crossed any of them off?
No, no, not really. There's one I crossed last week that I realized it should have been there. There is San Michele in Venice. There is a
Oh,
cemetery on an island. Joseph Brodsky is there, Stravinsky, um, Ezra Pound. It's pretty
mm,
amazing, and it's pretty amazing because it's on an island, but all of the others, no. I'm going to London now, so maybe I cross one of the five magnificents in London, but no, especially the ones in Asia. I've never been to Asia, And I use these travels. I don't travel for a cemetery. I never do that, and I will never do that if even if I can.
Okay.
I want the research to be um, a result of going to the city and interacting with the city or with the place, not
Yeah.
exactly like that. In a way
Right.
more integrated, like life and death are. So
Right.
most of the times, even sometimes I don't mention it in the book, but most of the time I'm there in that city because I'm going to a festival, because I'm going to visit
Right.
it, because I'm going to, I don't know, um, to some writers retreat, whatever. But I ran away from my obligations, having a conversation with another writer to go, or I finish that and say, oh, hello, I had to go, and I'm going to the cemetery because and I like to keep it like that because that makes it more casual and that
Yeah.
gives you a lot of surprises and takes you to play and I still haven't had the opportunity to see many the ones that I want to see in Asia, so this is a call to invite me, and so I so I can go, but no, not yet, and maybe never. In a way,
Yeah.
it's a good way to say, okay, these are the things that I will never get, the satisfaction of going. It's a bit of a, I don't know, some kind of poetic thing to do to keep it like the places I will never be.
Yeah, I think leaving it up to fate and making it more of an organic experience rather than a planned one. First, I feel like that's very you, that makes it very much a Mariana Enriquez
Hmm.
trip and experience, and that gives us all the great books that we want out of that.
Thank
Um,
you.
yes, absolutely. But it also, like you said, I think it's true of life and death, leaving it up to fate makes it just feel, yeah, like you said, more poetic. I agree. All right, so we are a bookstore, so I would be remiss if I didn't ask you a little bit about who you're reading now and what's been inspiring you, and if there was anything that influenced the way that you put this book together.
Mm. Well, obviously, it haven't influenced me, but when I did it, many people came to me and said to me, Sebald, the writer,
Mm,
and
right.
and and I've read him since, and I don't do that. He's much smarter, but it's another idea, but yeah. But the kind of impressionistic thing that I love, um, that I loved when I was writing it was, of course, Bruce Chatwin, which is a writer that is not that read today, and I'm pretty much, I think, forgotten in many ways. But I really love his approach to travel writing. He just went to places and he got a lot of things wrong, which I think is part of the deal with when you're doing travel writing, because this is not exactly journalism.
Yeah.
It's an impressionistic thing, and you get data wrong and you can change your idea. This is a book that is forever mutating. Um, these days, because of what I'm writing about, I'm reading a lot of uh ghost stuff, and not exactly, not all the time fiction. Right now I'm reading this book that is called Ghostly Matters. It's by a sociologist that is called Avery Gordon,
Hmm.
and she thinks about hauntology. Basically, there is a concept of Mark Fisher too. That is someone that I really like too, and is thinking about how ghosts are not just the spooky, or that are basically, and I think this is kind of linked to the book, they are memory,
Mm.
and they are that which we can't leave behind. Is what Faulkner said about the past is not even past, and you know, and to me, when we were talking about this moment that is pure present and it's kind of really annoying in many ways,
Yeah.
because to me it doesn't let you think. It doesn't let you put things in perspective, and it's very prescriptive, which is things I really don't like as a state of life. Um, to read about how the past haunts the present, and how in many ways we live in a haunting area because the past has become this scary thing. I don't know, it's something
Mhm.
very interesting to me, so that book
Yeah.
has been massive. This I don't know, I'm traveling, so it's kind of difficult to keep reading, and I'm really reading that.
Yeah, that sounds so interesting, and I think that that is a great next step for readers after they finish this book to maybe pick that one up, just to have a little bit more context, especially on where your head is at with
Mm.
these ghostly matters as well. So I
Yes.
will definitely want to check that out. Mariana, thank you so much for being on Poured Over. Somebody is Walking on Your Grave is out now.
Oh, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you for listening. Poured Over is a Barnes & Noble production. To help other readers find us, please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.